Hi again, everybody. This is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different areas, different niches, and different backgrounds to find out more about, what success looks like for them. Some of the things that have been happening in their space that they're making big moves on. We talk about that as well, and try to pull out some really quick, actionable things that the listeners, like you and I, can take away and hopefully apply to their own, whether it's business lives, personal lives, or otherwise. So we have two guests today, and we're really kind of happy to have them along. Just before I do the introduction on them, two quick things. One is, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, we have one of our supporters, Jazz HR, is the applicant tracking system that is helping a lot of organizations right now as they begin to ramp up and as they begin to hire people. That's a system that will help them with publishing the job ads and also tracking the applicants that come in. So it just makes that process a heck of a lot easier, has some calendaring functions, things like that. So definitely take a look at it if you're a small or medium-sized organization that is just looking to be able to make that process a little bit smoother. You can do that at www.bigideabigmoves.com, and just look for Jazz HR, click on it, and they'll be able to help you out. The other side is that Epitome HR is helping a lot of the people who have found themselves out of work right now, and really trying to figure out, how do I look at my LinkedIn profile? How do I make sure that my resume is up to speed? And maybe also how it connects to that applicant tracking system type of thing that we were talking about. So Epitome usually works with the companies on how to put that stuff in place. So they have some tips and tricks that can help you as a job seeker. So they have some career coaching packages. Definitely, again, take a look at those. Do it through www.bigideabigmoves.com, and they can definitely help you out there as well. So with those things out of the way for the start of today's session, we have two different guests, as I mentioned. We have Nicole Pollock and Jorie Brown, and they own and run an event staffing and brand development company, and that's Cotton Candy Event Staffing, or you also may hear they've kind of shortened that in some things too, where it's CotCan. So we'll hear about kind of some of the techniques behind that. Nicole and Jorie both began their careers in a very similar fashion and connected well. So this is kind of cool that we get to talk to both of them today, because they were both brand ambassadors and performers through the Toronto Raptors Dance Pak, Toronto Argonauts, and from that they kind of partnered to build this boutique firm that has worked with brands from Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, Nike, I know Canada Goose and Google, so some really big names in a pretty short period of time. So very cool to be able to hear a little bit about their experiences. So first of all, welcome to both of you. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having us.
Oh, no problem. I mean, the one thing that I think is very cool is that you've been very connected even before you kind of started this endeavor a few years ago now. Maybe, Jorie, do you want to start and just talk about how the two of you kind of connected and shared a bit of a background to kind of start this, and Nicole, just jump in where it makes sense as well.
For sure. So Nicole and I spent the majority of our 20s dancing professionally for teams like you mentioned, the Toronto Argonauts cheerleaders, the Toronto Raptors Dance Pak. And so our paths sort of very much mirrored each other's, doing the same things at different times. Mm-hmm. But the understanding of two things while doing this. One was understanding repping a brand, the energy involved, the enthusiasm, being the face of a brand, finding ways to connect with people. The second thing that connected us was the understanding of our networks, the power of our network, the people that we were meeting, continuing to meet, and we both really understood these two things and what bringing them together could ultimately create, which inevitably did, which is the birth of Cotton Candy Event Staffing. So I'll let Nicole also sort of jump in and share some ideas.
The fact that we were doing a lot of similar things and doing them at different times, we both got a really great perspective on entertainment and how people can impact an event. I mean, being able to work with sports you see how you can impact a fan, how you can make that amazing experience. So we both really got to live and breathe that, and being able to see that from that side of things, we've been able to lean on each other and had a very similar outlook and perspective on how to make an impact. And that's how we kind of came together, is our mutual vision.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about, because both of you, about that energy and about making the connection. That for your organization, that is a huge part of it. I mean, that is the part of it, about being able to make that connection. How do you, when you're going out and kind of staffing for these different companies and events, how do you find that special thing that not everybody has, and how do you make sure that it's front of mind for people that work for you as well?
Everybody has their niche. Cotton candy, especially in the name itself, is just synonymous with fun and energy and personality. So that's really our focus when it comes to selecting brand ambassadors. We take a lot of time to vet our candidates, do casting calls, meet people, see their personality. And that's how we kind of cherry pick the people that represent our brand, is really who stands out, who makes that meaningful connection. You know, everyone talks about the it factor, but in being a brand ambassador, that really is important. You know, you can be sampling or connecting with consumers in any type of high paced environment, and you need to be able to have a short period of time and make a big impact. So that's really, you know, what we try to watch and see how people do, and then select our people from there, as those who really made a difference, those who really were memorable. That's very important to us.
And I think these are things that Nicole and I really realized being part of these sports brands organizations, was the fan to ambassador, the cheerleader sort of connection, and how important that was and how that person made you feel. And I think when we go into casting and we look to grow our roster, it's an energy thing. I like such an energy person. You feel the good vibes right away, instantly. And you know, when we go into these castings, that's what we're looking for. Someone has the most amazing resume, have done and worked with countless different you know, organizations and whatnot, but I think right away what connects you is that energy, and that's what the brands we do work with look for when you know, someone is handing you a great sample or speaking you know, some key messaging about that brand. They're looking for someone that connects and has that great energy, because that's the takeaway when you leave, you go home, that's what you're going to ultimately remember.
And how do you make that connection with, because you are kind of that intermediary between somebody else's brand at the same time, how do you make that connection between your client and them?
Well, I think it's really cool. Our brand ambassadors are very passionate about their work. That's something that's really important to us. So when you get to, you know, be with Hershey's and sampling chocolate, or, you know, with Nike showing the newest sneaker, we pick people who already have an affinity for those brands, who have connected with those brands elsewhere, and then can really bring that personal touch to it. You know, if you're showing people a newest sneaker, but you personally love them, you're wearing them on your feet, you're telling people, you know, I went for a run last night and I really enjoyed my shoes. That's the extra piece that really connects with people, versus, you know, somebody who is selling something or presenting something to you but doesn't use or embody themselves. So that's really how we try to select the people for the brands, are people who really have a passion for the brand itself or have some personal connection to it.
Yeah, I think we take the time to really understand what, you know, the brands and companies we work with are looking for specifically, and we understand that we have a roster that is incredibly diverse. So, you know, picking that right person to represent that brand. Not everyone that works for us is going to be great on a specific brand, and it's really up to us as that middle person to connect the right individual, the right group of people to the right specific brand, so they can ultimately, you know, thrive and do a great job in field.
Do
We
you
take a lot
have
of
to,
time.
oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Nicole, sorry.
We take a lot of time to learn what the staff, you know, where their passion lies. It's really important that we have that personal connection to them, so then we know where the best fit is.
And do you find yourselves having to coach the brands that you're working with very often around how to do that? Or, I mean, you've dealt with some pretty big brands, some of those ones that aren't quite as large and are maybe using this as an opportunity to develop their brand. Do you find you have to kind of coach them through how to do that?
I would say a big part of the time the brand has a really strong vision and we step in to help them execute it.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely there are times where some, you know, smaller brands or some brands who want to learn new marketing ways, we definitely are able to use that experience to kind of help guide or shape how they do it, or we can, brainstorm different options with them to see what's best for their brand. But I would say the bulk of what we focus on is, the brand has a really great idea or maybe two options that they're looking between, and then we either help execute or help them decide the best route with their vision.
Right. And now, so switching to you as entrepreneurs, maybe Jorie, what has been has there been a big surprise, I guess, in that transition from doing what you were doing before and going into this? Is there something that surprised you with being an entrepreneur?
I guess it's the general, is a general theme is that, I'm very passionate about people and relationships and connecting people, sort of the heart that goes in there. And then there's the business mind frame, all the things you didn't learn, right? Your passion and everything is there, but also, it's like you get your degree, your business degree, like really quickly when you start to decide to launch and become an entrepreneur. You're learning all the things behind the scenes, which you think you so strongly can take on, which obviously is the mindset of entrepreneur, that you can take on anything, but it becomes a reality check of all the behind the scenes stuff that come into play. I think for us, growing really quickly, it's, love dealing with people, but you're dealing with a lot of people and a lot of personalities, and understanding how to manage and bring the best out of people at an incredible growth and volume. I would say is all the behind the scenes stuff, the finances, all that fun stuff. Yeah.
It's so interesting for us because, we see entrepreneurs, and even before we started the business, we look at entrepreneurs and we're like, wow, you had a passion and a vision and you brought it to life.
Yeah.
And then you actually do it and you think, being great in your craft is how you start the idea, how you begin. But then it's all, like Jorie said, all the things behind the scenes, insurance and finances and government and all these incredible things that, we understand what makes an impact for a brand. We know how to, cultivate growth in a team and a company culture, but then it's all the other, things. And it's very interesting, like Jorie said, how quickly you have to learn and jump into these roles and, or delegate, and how you have to know, where your limitations are, where you need to lean on other people for guidance. So that's definitely, being an entrepreneur, I always say, is not just being great at your craft, because that, is how you begin the process, but how
Right.
you, learn to adapt, learn, and lean on people. That's really, it's the side of the coin that you don't focus on as much when you start.
Yeah, and your brand is built so much off of an energy level and having that very kind of positive push from the front end. How do you, as entrepreneurs, all that back end stuff can take a lot of your time up, can also be a little bit frustrating, I would assume, at times. How do you make sure that you continue to model that for your employees? Like, how do you manage that yourselves to make sure that you are still that front facing kind of positive high energy person?
The staff are able to draw that out in us too with their personality, which is really helpful for us, because even if we're having a day where we're focused on numbers and craziness that isn't really what we love as much, then you get to an event, you get in front of the staff, and their energy is it's very amazing for us to be able to connect with and snap back into like, oh yeah, this is why I love what I do. This is the energy that I need to have. And also dividing and conquering, if I'm having a difficult day and I can lean on Jorie to be that front facing person, and vice versa, which is really great, because, sometimes you are in a funk or you have a stressful moment and something, having the two of us is really great to be able to, I can't take this one. I'm having a moment.
Yep.
Run with it, and
Yeah.
we can do that with each other, which is really helpful.
Yeah,
Jorie?
we've started to grow our internal team, and it's, at the beginning as an entrepreneur, you want to have control, but it's learning that you can sort of relinquish a little bit of control, and that, your positivity hopefully resonates with the people that work for you, so that you're ultimately growing it without always being so on top of it. But we have some really great people that hopefully have learned sort of our mentality of how to keep energy sort of up there at all times. Every event and every brand activation that we work with, we sort of we will we'll designate a team lead, and that person is an extension of us. So we're hoping to keep that high energy always at top ultimate level.
Yeah, it's kind of, if you build the culture and make sure that you have enough triggers in there to do it, that makes sense, right? And Jorie, we're at a time where in-person events you guys probably got impacted pretty heavily. I mean, I've talked to lots of people in both sports and in your industry lately, and that's it's just now starting to kind of open back up again and things like that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how did you have to kind of deal with that, and how moving forward, how do you think that will change kind of what you do and how you do it?
I think sort of when this all hit, the COVID sort of hit from the beginning, it was sort of panic for everyone. We're based on events, concerts, festivals, heading into a summer, which is typically like crazy busy for us. Sort of that fear of like, okay, like there's no events. Where are these products and brands going to get their names out to? But then I think there was natural like pressure, like where are you going to pivot? What's going to happen? And I think for us, it was sort of not getting bogged down by all that sort of negative energy and sort of saying, okay, let's take this time to pause and reflect and see what's going to happen. Because at the end of the day, people are still buying products and drinking and their food and eating and drink, the people are still consuming products. So
Yeah.
brands still need to get the word out. So we sort of had that understanding that it's going to come back in a way. It will look different, but it will come back. And I think over the last month or so, I think generally all feel the world sort of a little bit warming up. I think we're all still very cautious, but there are ways that brands are altering their branding experience, because I think that human connection is still very important. Digital is wonderful and it reaches a lot of people, but that there's something unsaid about, we all love it. We all want to go to an event, but there are ways and altered ways that brands can find the opportunities to make that human connection. And like I said, the last few months we've been seeing that trend with the brands and organizations that we work with, modified ways to sample, safe ways to sample. So it's beginning to feel different, good, but different. And we're positive in sort of seeing where XM and where it's sort of going to modify and be, but it will be there.
Live experiences aren't going to go anywhere. People are going, sporting events will be back, live entertainment will be back. It's something that people crave. So we see now more than ever how valuable it is, and finding this time to focus on maintaining really great relationships with our clients and with our staff. That was our first, oh my gosh, okay, at first we weren't sure how long this would last, and then what to do next. And our focus really now is being out there, staying connected with people, maintaining strong relationships, knowing that, like Jorie said, consumer products are still going to happen, events are still going to come back, and just the best way to stay relevant during this time and to make sure that we make people feel heard and seen, and that we're going to be partners moving forward, and finding ways to do it the safest way possible. I think that's what everyone's really looking at is, how do we keep people safe? How is the best practices being put in place? And that's really all we're focused on now at this time.
Yeah, and it is interesting that because people have been doing everything digitally for a period of time, you do see that what might have been novel and kind of a little bit, I don't want to say exciting, but for some people it was learning it and having to do all of that. Now it's kind of shifting the other way, that people are just craving so much to have some kind of more personal connection. And so it's interesting to see how that is starting to change, and a mindset is probably starting to change back as well. So another question is that and entrepreneurs normally have some kind of mentors or people that have helped them along the way. So I'll ask you both if you can kind of think of who is it who you either kind of look up to from a business standpoint or whatever it happens to be, but who is it that you think has really kind of helped you in your journey so far? And maybe we'll start with Jorie then.
Oh boy. I think, again, we really go back to our roots in sports and growing up dancing. Some of the coaches that I have had, and not in business, not in a business perspective, but just coaches, dance coaches, understanding a team mentality, keeping a spirit alive, developing a culture have helped me in that sense take that over to the business side of things.
Yeah.
So I would say some of my coaches, shout out to all my dance coaches growing up. And I also spent a large chunk working for an entertainment company which is a close friend of mine, and I'll shout out Abby from Soul Power, really helped me learn the business side of things. So I think cumulatively those two things, coaches growing up as well as from an entertainment perspective, business side point of view, was a mentor of mine, Abby Tobias.
Great. And Nicole?
I think that, because Jorie and my experience are so mirrored, I have a very similar, outlook on that, as well as, I think the organization, you walk onto the court at an NBA game and you look at the production and you look at the things that are going into, yes, the sport is incredible, but the fan experience, the people that are there, and all the little pieces that help make that work. I think that's been a really big inspiration for me. And also, being able to dance and growing up and looking at discipline and what it teaches you. And also, my dad is an entrepreneur. My mom is, one of the most supportive people. That when I wanted to do this, I was actually working elsewhere at the time. And, that motivation for me, knowing that I had that support system, and, hearing my mom in my ear tell me that she believed in me and that I was going to be able to do it, was really, really impactful for me, because it is nerve-wracking. It is very different.
Sure.
And I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. It's, something that kind of evolved over time. So, having seen the grand productions and then having, people close to me just cheer me on was really helpful for me.
And it's a very competitive environment. I mean, you're in a competitive field and all of those things. What has helped you get through that, or is there a resilience that you've had to kind of build up, or where does it come from?
Yeah, so going back to like the competitive environment, sort of like being an entrepreneur in our business state right now, but I think we've never really been competitive people in that sense. Everyone always asks us, who's your competition in the industry? And it's like, I generally don't think there's competition in the industry. I think each person has their unique niche and skill set, and we're all doing similar things, but I think we all bring a different perspective to XM and marketing and staffing. So it's just sort of having that understanding that everyone's different. Everyone has something different to contribute in this industry.
There's so much to go around.
Allowed us to focus on ourselves and not worry about competition. So maybe that's ultimately allowed us to plow through, because we just haven't, dwelled on the competition. It's just ourselves and how we're unique in our industry, and pushing for that.
Keep your head down, work hard. I think that's something that is really, really important to us. We feel that way. We also, really share that with our staff. Focus on what you're doing, focus on working hard. We would really like to look at the industry more as, people to inspire you or people to push you. And there are so many brands, there are so many events. It's not that, Cotton Candy can do them all, even if we wanted to. So, finding the brands that are best fit with our staff, finding the events that are best fit with our staff and best fit with Jorie and I. So obviously, we do a lot in the sports industry. Well, we have a background in sports, so that makes sense. And, there might be other companies that have a background in something else, and those events are more tailored to them. I think that, Jorie and I really, especially growing up and dancing and working with other people, it's just, if you cheer each other on and focus on yourself, you'll go a lot further than looking at what other people are doing and letting it break you down or feeling, that competitive spirit. Of course it's there. There are other companies, and, if we lose a contract and somebody else takes it, we take a minute, and, it's not our favorite moment, but definitely, knowing that obviously wasn't meant to be, and channeling that energy into not missing, the next mark for us.
Yeah. And I guess that whole piece that we talked about before, where you spend your time building whatever your culture is and whatever your market niche is, and you've been able to capitalize that with the other part that I think was mentioned at the start, is about networks and being able to build your network, and that's probably where a lot of that has come from, is your own networks, and that's why you're so connected into the sports and entertainment field as well. If you're an organization, let's say, whether let's say it's a small organization or somebody individually, because you are kind of that branding and branding experience experts, if you were to say kind of, and maybe we'll ask kind of both of you, a couple of things that you think somebody could do really quickly just to start to think through how they can build their brand and build their brand experience, what would they be? And maybe it will start with Jorie, and then we'll go to Nicole. Okay.
Yeah, so someone that's sort of looking to create their brand, I think it's obviously sticking and coming up with an image that you feel strongly about. For us, when we started, it was about energy, good vibes, bright colors, and sticking true to that continuously through our marketing, our branding. For us, what we're helping people, these brands do, is do that through the power of people. So it's really finding the right people to represent your brand. That's ultimately what anyone's going to walk away with remembering. Yeah, Nicole, if you want to try to jump in to feed off of that.
Just what Jorie said, so she's saying consistency throughout, finding who you want to be and maintaining that throughout, which is really important. And I'm going to go even a step further and say, look at all your social media first. I think that's a really, that's how we've been connected today. And you realize that really is a voice for yourself. It's a voice before you're heard these days. So going through, the different forms of social media that you have, making sure that you're representing yourself and putting yourself out the way that you want to be perceived, and actually living that self. So, you can't just put up, who you want to be and behave, in opposite ways. So really just putting out the image that you want to look at, that's your own personal brand. So, if I'm going to tell the world who I am, I want that to be consistent with how I behave in my life and what I share with people. So I think that, being consistent and really looking at your image as being your own personal brand is the best way to start, how to elaborate a branding experience.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, great advice, especially with the consistency and also the people, that are representing you as well, and being able to make sure that and your social media channels all connect. I mean, that's great experience for anybody, regardless if it's just kind of an independent personal brand versus something that's, a large organization. It's all the same thing, right? So how do, kind of talking about that, how do people best connect with your organization and any other kind of media channels, just for them to be able to follow the two of you as well? Jorie,
So,
make it easy.
I know. Like arrow, right?
Yeah.
So for us, in terms of, staff joining our roster, we're always looking to cast some really exciting faces on to add to our roster. We hold monthly casting calls where we bring people in. We're obviously doing things a little bit differently now with the pandemic, but we do casting calls where it's very important to us to meet and, again, get those good vibes and feel that good energy from the potential people we look to bring onto our roster. So applying, we obviously ask people to follow our social channels at Can Events all across the board on Twitter and Instagram. And there we'll post our casting notices, getting people to get in contact with us there. All the information will be listed. Social media is the way to connect these days. So again, getting people to follow us there and come out to one of our castings so we can meet them and feel the good vibes. And if they are a good fit, getting them to represent a brand we feel they'll best be suited for.
Awesome. Okay. Well, go ahead, Nicole.
You can see where Nicole, I'm very much on the staffing side of things, and Nicole very much takes on the client side of things. Now you can see where we are within the business. Go ahead, Nicole.
Both our staff and our clients can reach out to us on our website, which is cottoncandyevents.com, because both there's a link right there that goes straight to our email, and we really try to stay on top of things and be efficient with our time.
Yeah, well, I mean, and this is great because you get both perspectives, right? The client side and then the staffing side. So this is awesome. So
it's so interesting how our roles have evolved, and we really, have very similar takes, but very different avenues that we've established. So it's
yeah.
awesome.
It's a good partnership, obviously. So, so make sure if whatever kind of podcast platform you're listening to, make sure you make those connections. We are going to put them in the show notes. So, so if you haven't kind of made that connection or written that down, just go on to our website and you'll see right in there all of the links for the different guests, and including our two guests today. So that will be in there as well. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you hit that button now and anytime, because every week we have great guests like this, and I think you'll be really pleased with being able to take away a lot of really cool stuff every week. So so make sure you do that, and we will see everybody again on Big Idea, Big Moves. Thanks very much, ladies. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you.
All right.